What is going on, Misfits family here? We're back for another pregame show. And, we've gotten the practice games out of the way. The Big Ten conference play officially begins. Let the games begin is what we titled this. So truly do let the games begin. USC has started off 2-0. They're still unranked. And I know there are some USC fans that aren't happy about that. But to be fair, I'll say this. When you play Georgia Southern, when you play Missouri State, you got to play a real competitor to be ranked. I don't know. What do you think about that, Eric?
You know what? I think it doesn't matter, ranked or unranked, as long as they win the games, they beat the opponents that are on the schedule, everything will take care of itself. So it's much ado about nothing.
It is, we'll give it its time. But Eric, I'll let you start us off, on this date in USC football history. What do we got for September 13th?
I'm glad you asked, young Padawan, because on this day, former USC athletic director Mike Bohm, he fired Clay Helton after 8 seasons as the head coach of the football program. Now, it's kind of ironic because his win-loss record was 46-24. That's eerily similar to a head coach's current record, but I digress. Clay Helton also had 2 New Year's, 6 bowl games, and he won the 2017 Pac-12 championship. Now, I know the $1 million question is, who replaced Clay Helton, right? Dante Williams. I don't know if you remember him, but he took over as the interim coach for the remainder of the season. He was the passing game coordinator from 22 to 23, and he also was a DB coach. He left USC for Georgia to be the DB coach, where he later has resigned. And after that debacle, that Clay Helton debacle, USC hired Lincoln Riley in the offseason to a 10-year, $110 million deal. Now, it hasn't all been doom and gloom. Why? Because Lincoln brought a generational talent with him at quarterback, Caleb Williams, who in his first season at USC won the Heisman Trophy. Now, I got to say this with a modicum of pride. USC has the most Heisman Trophy winners in the nation with 8. That's now that Reggie Bush, his Heisman reinstated, USC really is Heisman U. So that's what happened on this day in USC.
Yeah, certainly a big moment in USC history. You talk about it, Caleb Williams, now Heisman, now, part of the Chicago Bears, and he's still trying to find his footing in the NFL. But this is not a podcast to talk about Caleb Williams and his Chicago Bears career, because we could talk too long about that. But let's talk about who USC is playing this week to begin their Big Ten conference play. 12:30, an early kickoff. It's the earliest kickoff we've seen USC this season, and they are facing off against the Purdue Boilermakers. Now, they've only faced off 4 total times. USC is 3-1, and I wasn't even alive the last time these teams played. You got to go back to 1998 and August 30th when USC beat Purdue 27-17. Now, a little just facts and history. Who were the quarterbacks in this game? Well, that would be Hall of Fame. The year that he won Big Ten Player of the Year, and it was a freshman, Carson Palmer, who saw 6 pass attempts for 79 passing yards. So we had some NFL quarterbacks face off the last time that these two teams faced off back in 1998. But current Purdue doesn't have that start they once had. They finished last year 1-11. They were 0-9 in conference play, but they're hoping for maybe a revival with their new head coach, Barry Odom, who comes over from UNLV. And it was kind of a whole, just a revamp of this whole entire Boilermakers program. I mean, now they brought in 82 new players, which 52 of those were via the transfer portal. So, in this new state of college football, you're seeing a lot of new guys coming to the program, but this was the most we'd seen across the nation of new players coming into a college football program. And funny enough, Barry Odom, his last job at UNLV, he coached Jaden Maiava in his first year as a head coach back in 2023. But Barry Odom is a lot more known for his defensive concepts, his defensive minds. He was a linebacker at Missouri in his college days. He spent there as a graduate assistant, and through his years, he's kind of worked his way up to being a head coach. So there's 2-0 on the season to begin, but similar to USC, they haven't really played much competition. And we'll get to one of the teams that they played because I have an interesting note on that. But they played Ball State, they played Illinois State, and they handled them how they should have handled any team that has to pay to play them, right? That's kind of how it goes in those beginning weeks of the season. But I want to get to kind of the big topic that we should talk about heading in to this season. And I think that is, can we trust this USC offense, Eric, in 2025? Because look, we know the capabilities that we've seen from Lincoln Riley. I think we've seen from Jada Mava. And I think a stat that really steps out to me is USC in 2024 had 3 total scoring plays of 40 yards or more. They already have 6 in their first 2 games. Now, we know what type of opponents they played, but is this an offense you could trust going forward? I mean, they are top 3 in passing yards this season thus far.
Listen to me, man. As I hate to be the bearer of bad news, as great as they have performed, we got to put everything in context. You know, with me, you're going to get a ton of nuance. Jada Mava, as great as he has looked, sitting in the press box and watching these concepts like come to fruition, there are a lot of times he's like waiting until guys become butt naked, wide open before he throws the ball. He's not necessarily throwing with the anticipation. He's not throwing with timing. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not necessarily too sure that he's actually reading his progressions. Now, I will say that head coach Lincoln Riley is doing a phenomenal job at putting him in positions to excel and succeed. But when you have Jacoby Lane and you have Makai Lemon, Wayman Jordan, Lake McCree, it's kind of easy against inferior competition. Now, Purdue, I want to say, has the number 1 ranked scoring defense in the nation at 17 points a game. This is going to be a test. Don't get it twisted. This is going to be a test. I do think that there is enough firepower that USC has to come out victorious, but I'm being cautious.
Yeah, no, and it's good to be cautious because I think, some people can drink the Kool-Aid a little bit too fast, especially when you're not playing teams that are that great. But I agree. I mean, I think this is, look, we haven't really seen them play anybody. And Lincoln Riley, I mean, as much criticism as he receives, he produces Heisman quarterbacks because he makes their job easier with what he's running. What I will point out about this Purdue defense, though, and in the game that I was just watching versus Illinois State, look, you can look at the scoreboard. It was a blowout. But what I saw in that first half was Illinois State was able to expose a lot of the back-end issues that Purdue has. And that's something that I look at USC say. You have Makai Lemon, who was the highest graded receiver out of any receiver in the nation last week. And then you have this man. Hold up. Sorry. The picture is loading, but I think it is only right we get this photo right here. You got this man. So, you got those both options at receiver. So I think, yes, it is. Can you trust them? It's going to take some time because we've seen in the past. But I think against Purdue, we saw those weaknesses in the past game. And I know it was just a small sample size, but I think the talent is certainly there. But I'll move it over to this. And I think this is the key to success for USC this week. And it's stopping the run. I think this is a Purdue team where they have a quarterback like Ryan Brownie, who actually, funny enough, his backstory was he was on Purdue last year after their 1-11 year. He decided to transfer, went to UNC, didn't win the job as Gio Lopez, the Southern Alabama quarterback, won the job at UNC. Honestly, Ryan Brownie's probably glad he's not at UNC right now, but came back to Purdue and now is the starting quarterback once again. So just a fascinating journey for the starting quarterback for Purdue. But he's not a gunslinger. He's not someone who's going to make you really have to. So I think really where Purdue succeeds the most is their run game. They're averaging 153.5 yards in their first 2 games. And a guy like Devin Maccabee has 3 rushing touchdowns, 185 yards, 46 carries in 2 games. And I think this is where Purdue is going to try to attack USC because there have been a little bit of glimpses. And Eric, I want you to tune in here. A little bit of, some relapses of last year was stopping the run.
You know what? That is definitely what I am paying attention to this week. I'm looking at Devin Tompkins, Jude Abasari. I'm looking at Desmond Stevens II, Tamir Robinson, Elijah Newby. Those guys that are literally up front in the middle of the field between the hashes have to stop the run. The linebackers haven't necessarily been flowing in the first 2 games. I expect a lot more out of a Rob Ryan coached core. But as of right now, that is the big question mark. Can USC stop the run? And I think this game right here is going to determine how the rest of this season is going to look for the Trojan defense.
And I promise we're not trying to sound like a broken record, but I think me and both Eric know, like, you come into Big Ten football, like you have to stop the run every single week. And Purdue, to be fair, and I'll say they're a good running team, but there are better running teams in the Big Ten. And if you want to play in the college football playoffs, damn well you're going to have to stop the run. So this is only the beginning of, if USC can't do it now, like you alluded to, it's going to be a long season. And trust me, I know as a fan of a team, I'm not even going to talk about my professional team, but a team that can't stop a run, it's something that carries throughout a season. So I certainly agree. And I think that's why it's the key to success versus Purdue. So I'll throw it to my player to watch, and I'll keep it simple. I think Cameron Fountain, the sophomore edge rusher for USC, is someone, I talked about they obviously have to stop the rush, but the running game. But Cameron Fountain is a versatile guy that they've really used inside and out. And I think is someone, as only a sophomore, he has 2 sacks on the season. He had 2 sacks in 7 games last year. Certainly, I think if you're Tom Lynn, you got to utilize as almost kind of like that Michael Parsons. Throw him around the field. He's very explosive on the edge, but put him in the middle, kind of shake up the defense a little. So that's my player to watch. How about you, Eric? Or maybe a unit.
Desmond Stevens II and Kamari Ramsey. I think those two are going to have a huge indication and impact on how this game unfolds. If Desmond and Kamari are able to plug their run fits and get opposing running backs on the ground, I think it bodes well for USC. Those are the 2 guys. I know you usually want me to get one, but I got to look at Desmond and Kamari.
Hey, 2 is better than 1. We'll always take that. I'm never not going to take that. So let's wrap it up here. And we got prediction time. USC is coming to this game. They're favored by 20.5 points. Give it to me straight, Eric. What's the score going to be of this game?
You know what? I have only been off by 3 points in terms of defense, what the defense is going to allow. I think Purdue is going to score 21 points. However, USC is going to score more than them. I don't think they win by 20.5. So if you are a better, I'm taking the under. I do have it 35-21 USC.
All right, well, I'll stick on the 21 lane with you with Purdue, but I'm going to have USC scoring 40 points. I think as much as we talked about, can we trust this USC offense? I really don't think this Purdue offense puts a lot of challenge on USC offensively. And I think with a guy like Jaden Maava, obviously, you want him to go through his progressions more. But I just think you already talked about the talent. You talk about Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon, Lake McCree, even Waymon Jordan, Eli Sanders. I just think there's an arsenal of weapons that USC has. And I don't think Purdue has it in the back end to be able to stop many of those guys. So I'm going USC 40, Purdue 21. But hopefully we can continue our hot streak. I mean, I know it was non-conference play, but hopefully we can continue to be 3-0. I like how that sounds. But is there anything else USC fans should watch out for as we begin Big Ten play, Eric?
Yeah. Look at the first drives. Whoever is winning the line of scrimmage, 9 times out of 10 is going to win the game. I think if Alani and Elijah and Killian can control that rushing attack and the blitz, if they can pick up blitzes, I do think Purdue is going to blitz a ton this game because Jaden tends to struggle, and the Purdue coach was his coach, so he knows his weaknesses. If they can pick up blitzes and give Jaden some time to find Mekhi, I think Lake McCree is going to be a big factor in this game. That's going to be the key to victory. So watch the trenches on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, you got to win in the trenches to win a football game. But other than that, he's been E. Lamb. You can find him on all social media platforms. I'm Jude Reynolds Ocanius, and we appreciate you here for another USC pregame show. And we'll see you next week and potentially USC 3-0. But other than that, we'll see you guys next week. We're out.